All right, so before we get to our article discussions, this is one of the segments, and we're going to rotate this in from time to time. The idea here is let's go pick stories, let's go pick topics, let's go pick things that are interesting. It's not the news as much as it's insights that other people are sharing that are going to help us across that spectrum of leadership, communication, and innovation. But before we do that, two quick announcements. Actually, an announcement and a thank you. InfoSec World. That's March 19th to the 21st. So basically, you could go to InfoSec World and then you can go to Hack West. That's basically how you can make those things work. InfoSec World is at Lake Buena Vista, Florida, aka Disney World. It's at the Contemporary Resort. It's a fantastic layout. It's a lot of fun when you're there. And as one of our audience members, as part of the Security Weekly family, you get 15% off the InfoSec World 2018 main conference or World Pass. Use the code OS18-SW. That'll be in the show notes if you want to cut and paste that over. You're going to get talks from Adrian Sanabria, Diana Kelly, Ed Moyle. They've recently been on the program. Jennifer Manila did an absolutely great interview with us here a couple weeks ago. Joseph Zacharias, Mark Arnold, Mateus Maddow, and Summer Fowler, who Paul just interviewed on Wednesday. And I thought it was an absolutely fantastic conversation. And we learned that Paul has a deep affinity for best practices. So he's going to love the story I put in there this week.
I hate best practices and I hate defense in depth. And I really thought that I didn't envision myself reaching this point in my career.
Oh, I know.
And being so curmudgeon-y that I hate those terms. I kind of had a more analytical approach to those terms now, which has just really manifested itself into hatred.
It's so funny, Paul, how many times I will say to somebody, I never set out to be provocative. I've never set out to be contrarian. But I just got to tell you, and I think you and I are at the age now where we're allowed to sit on the porch and spray people if they come on our property and yell, "Get off my lawn."
Yeah,
so
pretty much.
Congratulations. We've made it.
It's a turning point in my career.
Hey, I want to do a special thanks to Nigel. I'm not going to mention your last name because I don't know if I got permission for that or not. But Nigel was listening because of our nonstop discussions of Never Split the Difference. Nigel went out, he got it. He's an audiobook listener, and then he sent me a copy of his mind map, and he crushed it. And then we got talking about the value of mind mapping while listening and different books and things that he's done. He actually went out to GitHub, found a bunch more. I had never thought to look for people mind mapping books and then finding a collective way to share it. So I think that's freaking fantastic. And I love mind mapping. And in fact, he gave me a couple ideas. One of the things we're going to start doing is we might do a segment now on mind mapping, just the power of it. And after that great conversation with Don Marie, we might end up actually doing a segment on some basics on, how to whiteboard a session like that. Because as she pointed out, the way that we tend to go at it versus up leveling it a little bit different. So Nigel gave us some ideas for some segments, and you're going to see some of those coming up. And he's on to Unbeatable Mind, and it's great because I just picked it up again, and my family is going through Unbeatable Mind. I think it's great. And I actually, for that one, I've got both the Kindle and the audio version. And what I'm going to try there is both, like listen and read at the same time. And I'm going to see what comes up with that. Paul, what are you working on next?
For what? I'm working on a lot of things.
Books.
Oh, books. Finishing
you want to do
up
Unbeatable Mind with us?
Yeah, I'm finishing up Rich Dad Poor Dad. And after that, whatever you recommend next.
Let's do Unbeatable Mind. I'll wait for you. I'll sync up with you, and we'll work through that one together. And then Nigel, let us know how it goes for you. Anybody else listening in? But also, we're serious every week. So you've seen now we're tightening our segments. We're doing 3 segments a week. Sometimes it'll be double interviews. Sometimes, in fact, we've got somebody we're real excited about interviewing next week. And we're going to do that as a double feature interview. And believe me, you're going to watch both and thank us for it. But then, we're going to work in some other stuff here. Paul and I have been sorting out what we call the recipes and some different ways to take a look at it. And some of you have written in. In fact, I'll tell you something that Matt Alderman and I and Paul are already working on is how do we answer the question, what problem are you trying to solve successfully? Somebody wrote in and Fred and I, Dr. Fred and I go back a long time. And he said, hey, all right, I'm bought in. By the way, most people don't get it right. What do we need to do to get it right? So we're going to start doing things like that. And I've got about 6 or 7 different ideas or suggestions that we will work into rotation over the coming months. If you've got ideas, hit us up. I love these conversations. And of course, we want to make sure that we're helping you as you do these types of things. So I'm excited about that. So Paul, in terms of some of the articles this week, I put this one in. I've started following the channel a little bit more, partly because I think it influences the way that we do a lot of stuff in security. And this one was interesting because they went out and they looked at CIOs, they looked at CTOs. They weren't looking at security people. They looked at it was about 1,000 different organizations, and they said, hey, What's up? What's on your mind? And 60% of the CIOs and CTOs, 49% of procurement said that security is one of their top 3 biggest challenges. So the reason I'm putting this in there is because we constantly feel this struggle, right? And Dawn Marie said, look, a lot of times on our teams, we feel underrepresented or under-respected. There's a lot of pressure on us and everything else. And I'll often hear somebody utter, well, they don't understand. They just don't care. But what I'm telling you is, objectively and subjectively, people care. They're not sure what to do about it. And what's happening here then is that it's driving that push to the cloud. And I thought that was kind of interesting. It's also driving this push to supply chain optimization, connected workforces, cloud data center transformation, digital innovation. So my question, if you're listening to us now, are those on your radar? Because that's what your organization is potentially worried about, right? This is definitely one trend line. It might not match yours, but go back to that conversation we just had. Are you lining up to the right stuff? Do you know where your organization's heading? And are you focusing on those things? And then I guess PS, what can you kind of stop in the process? It was pretty short. Paul, was there anything in here that kind of stood out to you as should pay attention to that? Or do you even agree with it?
I mean, I think that I'm not sure what the what's the problem? If 49% of procurement security is their top 3 biggest challenges, like my question is why? And more importantly, like what problem are you trying to solve? Security is a really big overarching subject matter and subject area, but like what problem are you solving and why are you struggling with it? Would be my question.
I think you just put your finger on something really important. Nobody knows, right? I think that's the thing. You and I have talked about this over the years. If you just say security, okay, I want it. Also, yes, it's a problem. Also, I totally understand it, except for I don't know what you're talking about, right? Yeah. You can make all of those statements at the same time and be completely correct. But I guess the point then is, if you're in the enterprise today and you're following the insights that we're happy to bring to you, you need to be conversant on that. So go ask them if they're concerned about security, and when they say yes, say, cool. What are you concerned about? What does that mean? How can I help you? What do you want to understand better? Because you know what? I'm concerned too. And I'd love to make sure that we're aligned. Say the word alignment. People like that word a lot.
People like that word. It's a fun word. Yeah, and that has to come first before you make the decision as to whether or not you're going to outsource it, I guess would be the term that I would use to describe what this article's talking about. Channel services is kind of a weird term to me.
I thought it was kind of weird too.
Yeah, my mind goes to channel sales. Mostly because of my background, but before you make that decision whether or not you're going to outsource something or do it in-house, you need to understand your risks, your problems, your challenges at a much deeper level before you then make the decision to like what you're going to outsource. So yeah, kind of a weird article if you don't do some of those necessary steps to understand the problem.
That's right. So so what I would do is I would use this article as a launching pad internally. Like, let's go ask about connected workforces. Let's go ask about what that means in our organization, how important it is, and what we could do from a security perspective to make sure we achieve that goal and we don't put ourselves at any unnecessary risk. By the way, I get it if you're cringing right now, but I'm going to have, I didn't say you weren't going to increase the risk, but you just got to understand it and make sure that people are better off for it. And I think this kind of feeds into this next one. It's fun. It was out of the Boston Globe. The golden ticket to a higher paying job. You need hard skills plus social skills. You know what I loved about it? It didn't call them soft skills for a change. It basically said, here's the deal. And it called out things like technology and security and said, look, if you've got great technical skills, you're going to be in demand. But if you want to take it to the place where you're highly sought after and get paid more, you've got to have the social skills. And I loved how it described it. You have to understand other people and understand where you then fit in. Oh, what a great way to think about it. And then it kind of points out, by the way, don't tell us you can't do it. You can absolutely develop these types of skills. I always mock. I mean, you know this. I think it's harder to develop soft skills than it is hard skills. I think hard skills are easily taught. But that's the golden ticket. You want to get paid more, develop empathy, develop the ability to understand and communicate with people, which, by the way, go read Never Split the Difference and you'll understand how to do that a lot better.
Yeah, I don't think that I wouldn't take that as meaning that it doesn't mean you have to be technical anymore. I think you can stay technical and
Absolutely.
develop social skills. It doesn't necessarily mean, well, if you're on this career path in security and you want to move forward, you need to develop social skills so that you can be a manager or C-level. That shouldn't be what the article is getting at. It's more about understanding people and empathy and having social skills to achieve your goals. And if your goals are to stay technical, that's cool.
I think it's a great point. I'll tell you, Paul, I've sat in a meeting. I think I've said this before too, on one of our programs on the network. I was in a meeting about a year ago where the person said, it's harder for me to find somebody who has project management chops who understands security than it is to get a security engineer. Like, there's a subset of things. And so I'm glad you made that point, because what I took this as was, if you want to be better, even at your technical aspect of your career, you still have to understand other people, or how to explain it to other people, or figure out where you fit in their success. You could be technical for the rest of your career, but your success at some level is still going to be your ability to influence outcomes, or get invited to the meetings, or at least understand how to participate successfully. Don't have to be the CISO or even in a leadership position for that. But security doesn't exist in a vacuum so much anymore. So kind of works out that way.
I think that I wouldn't say that everyone has the ability to develop social skills. I would say everyone who wants to and wants to put the work and effort into developing social skills certainly can. You have to have that desire.
Yeah, it's the willing and able thing, right? You can be willing and able. You can be or the opposite is unwilling and unable. And then, of course, you can be unwilling and able and willing and unable. But yeah, for the most part, it's more of a, let's just quickly debunk, you're either born with it or not.
Yeah,
you're born with something. If you have a desire, you can improve on that. And if not, nothing in the world will help you. All right, so this next one, what really drives sales growth and repeat business? Here's what I liked about this, and I copied this line out of it, attributed it, and it's right in our show notes. Content builds relationships, relationships build trust, and trust equals sales. So if you're listening to this right now as an enterprise team, you're like, what does this matter to me? Well, I always look at it for two ways. One, what a great way to take a look at your vendors. Go take a look at how they're educating you. Go think about if you trust them or not, and if that's good for them or not. But if you're inside the organization today and you're in security, you're also in sales. I know you're going to bristle at that, you hate it, etc. But congratulations, there you are. So think about your content. What are you educating people about? And are you doing it in a way that they understand? Or are you doing it in a way that you understand? Or are you just doing it to get it done and you're banging it out and shipping it? And then how are you building those relationships? We gave some of this advice a couple weeks ago, and we said, what meetings should you go to? And one of the pieces of advice was, if there's an opportunity to build a relationship, take that meeting. That's a good use of your time. So I looked at this entirely through the lens of enterprise leadership and said, are we properly educating the people around us, right? I always look at the infinite game. Are people better tomorrow because of what we did today? If so, then you're building that trust up. And, we'll say here it equals more sales. I'll say it equals more invitations to the right meetings. You want to be respected in the executive suite? Be the person who's doing that, building that trust. When they trust on you to come help protect things and get them where they want to be faster, you will be invited, period.
We talked about methods and tactics to retaining customers, Michael. And I don't remember what the context was of our discussion. I mean, we know it's important, and how it plays out for customer retention, I think, is different for every business. There's certainly a lot of functions that play into repeat business, as this article mentions. I think your support team is certainly probably most critical, I would say, to repeat business. There are other factors as well. In fact, we've spoken about how some of your marketing activities certainly play into keeping customers retained, and keep reminding them of the value that you provide, and making them aware of maybe new areas where you can provide value. So,
it's interesting that you say that, because when we look at content, I recently did some training with a sales team, and when we're doing the role playing, I kind of stopped the role play and I said, you know what? I haven't heard you guys praise anybody yet. You haven't said, wow, that's awesome, or great job, or I love that. And they were all kind of like, oh, that's interesting. Listen, nobody wants to be told that they suck. And when they're excited about something, they don't want to hear that they did a bad job. And so, yes, a lot of marketing is definitely about reinforcing people who already made the decision that they made a good decision. So if you're in a security team today and you're saying, well, what do I need to do for content? Oh, I'll tell them where they screw up. I'll tell them what they're doing wrong. I'll tell them how to do it right. Yeah, okay. You know what you should do? Go find somebody who did it right, tell their story, a real story, and applaud people. And when you sit in the meetings, don't say, well, let me tell you all the reasons that's not going to work. Start out by saying, awesome. I think our customers are going to love this, or I totally get what we're doing. I'm not saying lie. If you don't get it, you don't get it. Ask the right questions. But if it's good, take a minute and acknowledge the good work other people are doing. If they've invited you, if you've come to the table early enough that you feel you can be effective, praise them for that. Tell that story. That's the kind of content you want out there. And that reinforces to the people who work with you that they're also doing a good job. That's a great point, Paul. I like that a lot. All right. Is the problem incompetence or lack of training? This is a longish article. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I've been pretty vocal and outspoken for the last couple of years now that we do not face a talent gap. We do not face a talent shortage. And every now and then I will point out that almost every other industry and sector and size of organization lately proclaims the same. And frankly, it's lazy and I'm tired of it. And I get it. Somebody right now, you're cussing at the listening, or you're throwing something at us, and that's fine. And send me a note. Convince me I'm wrong. But let me put it this way, because this passage I copied out of this. I absolutely love this. Let's put it another way. If your company's work requires only skills that people should already have, those skills aren't unique and differentiated, and it's unlikely that your company is either. And if they have the right skills, then they probably have a job already. So why would they leave to join your company? This is where I think we have the biggest opportunity in security today. I don't see a lot of people putting thought into their recruiting programs with an eye toward what aptitudes do we need, what skill sets is the minimum need, and then how do I develop people? How do I get them to the right place? And by the way, as they level up, as they produce, as they explore, right? How do I keep them engaged? How do I make sure they don't get bored? How do I keep them where they go? And I've always looked at this. This wasn't in the article, at least not that I saw, but a lot of people have often said, and it gets attributed to a lot of people, what if we train them and they stay, and they leave? And you just answer it with, what if you don't and they stay? I think this is, I don't see a lot of people, Paul, that have what I would consider a thoughtful training and development program, right? Training, job-specific skills, development is the continued application of those skills over a period of time in your context. I haven't come across a lot of people, I think, that do this well. Those that have, by the way, never heard them complain about not finding enough people, not once.
Yeah, I think it's, for certain roles, it's harder to find people because there just aren't enough of those people. I guess is where we might slightly disagree on this subject.
Well, like what,
Michael.
though? Give me an example.
So in our industry today, and it's been a little while since I've looked at it, but I still believe it's true today that there are not enough people with the two different skill sets. One, malware reverse engineers, and number two, cloud architects. I think those are certainly malware reverse engineering has been around for some time, but it's really hard to find people with those sets of skills. But
is that something you need at the enterprise level? I mean, should every enterprise team have a malware reverse engineer?
No, but security vendors certainly that is a hot commodity today.
All right. Actually, I buy that. I certainly buy it. There are certain skill sets that are going to be in demand or hard to replicate. But then this is where, right, when we talk about the innovation part of the show, so who's got the training on that? Somebody's got it figured out and has the training on it. That's where you should be focusing, right? And minting out people that have that ability. And you're right, cloud security architect. I mean, that's a newer sort of thing. And what I've looked at with the cloud is functionally things are the same, but technically in the way that we achieve those functions, it's definitely changed. So again, I can see where that shifts it, but that doesn't signify that we have a broad sweeping talent gap or talent shortage.
I agree. A broad and sweeping is not the case. In certain isolated areas, we certainly do. And I think that we can certainly work to close those gaps by, like you said, Michael, offering training and development in those areas. And by having a workplace in security today, whether you're an enterprise or a security vendor that is developing people with those skills, is important. You may retain those employees or they may go somewhere else. But the important part is that you have a process to build those skills that we are in need of today, and not just throw your hands up and say, I can't find a cloud security architect, right? That's not the right answer. Yeah.
If you can't buy them,
Hmm.
as crude as that is, then build them. That should be our new best practice. What do you think, Paul? Best
God,
practices, are they dead?
well, so I hate two things about this. First, I hate best practices. Second, I hate
Are
declaring that
dead?
things. I hate declaring that things are dead because I think it's ridiculous.
I That's part of the reason I had to put this in for you, because it hit. I mean, you and I couldn't be in more alignment on best practices and are dead.
But here's what I did like about this, because I thought for the first time somebody did a decent job of explaining the concept of a best practice. And if you're in a much more established or industry or organization, it's the idea is, if you follow this sequence, if you follow this, you will get a more consistent outcome, whatever your particular outcome is. Awesome. Totally love that. But the way I look at it, seems the way you look at it is, in security, we're still so immature that to call anything a best practice is just silly. I usually just call them industry standards, or if pushed, I'll call it a good practice. But that still feels
I like
silly.
guidelines. Guidelines are good.
Yeah, I always look at it from a perspective of a guideline. And by the way, this might work. So if you get technical on policies, right, which are overarching, you have standards which are specific and measured against, but not a how-to. They're the what, not the how. Then you have procedures, which are the how, but they have to be adhered to with no violation. Or you have guidelines, which are also the how, and I don't really care if you follow them or not. So
Mm.
yeah, I think the practices, they could kind of fit into either of these. But the thing is, everything is changing so fast that nothing is best. So what they said was, the answer is imagination plus experience equals innovation. What do you? I'm not even sure what to think about that. But what do you think, Paul?
That makes my brain hurt. I think
Yeah. All right.
best
What's the other
practices. The reason I think that Michael and I don't want to speak for Michael, but my primary point of frustration when we use the term best practices are, you want to understand what other people are doing that are successful so that you can just copy that and move forward. And that doesn't usually work for
Yep.
organizations, because everyone's
the way,
environment. I mean, I hate to
doesn't-
say that we're all special snowflakes, but again, everyone's organization and security architecture
Well-
is a special snowflake. And so what other people are doing that are successful maybe should be a guideline, but it's certainly not the best practice for you. The best
There you
practice
go.
for you is what you define based on a whole set of things that we talk about on the show every week and some of our other shows as well.
Yeah, and the thing about this is, it goes back to the word you and I are in love with right now, which is context. Their context and your context are different. As a result, what worked for them may or may not work for you. I see this all the time when it comes to leadership and communication, and there's times that it makes me actually crazy. Here's what you do. Take our advice. Just start asking better questions. Start with our favorite. What problem are you trying to solve? And
Yeah.
then pause
Well,
long enough for that answer to surface.
I also think that things are never really, I hate the term dead, right? Because they're either things are misunderstood or they're obsolete in this context. Like when we talked about intrusion detection, it was dead, it was obsolete, and newer things emerged to meet the newer challenges that are very much a similar premise, but the original way that we did things was somewhat obsolete. Also, I think that things are largely misunderstood. Like people may claim threat intelligence is a great example, right? May claim threat intelligence is dead, threat intelligence is useless. No, it's not. It's just misunderstood in how you should be using it, or considering using a particular technology is just largely misunderstood.
Great point. All right, I threw this bonus in. I'm obviously always interested in being positive and showing people all the bright sides of stuff. I don't think there's a lot of value in tearing things down, except for I read this one, and I just wanted to point something out, because what we look at here a lot on this program and across our entire network is how do we make those better connections? There are people in the security industry that are solving great problems, and they can help you. And there's a lot of folks in the enterprise that are trying desperately to solve these problems. And the way that we do this, and we talk about it a lot, is through your point of view, which is your understanding of the problem, and your value proposition, which is your promise to solve that problem for that person in a way that creates value in context or in consideration of the impact of your solution. And what we find consistently is the people who get that right, if you can talk about your problem, you've isolated it down, you can talk about it intelligently, that's exciting to us. And then when I go, wait, how'd you do that? Then let's go talk about the specifics. So this basically comes in and it says, here, we figured this out. And it opens, Paul, really well. It starts out by saying, all right, we went up against this other competitor. They were far bigger than us. They were better known. But, it's amazing. When they went into the pitch, they talked all about themselves, and we didn't. We talked all about the problem and the challenges, and we won the deal. I'm going, yeah. And they said, so here's what we learned. From now on, we discredit our competitors, and then we try to differentiate ourselves. Oh, please listen.
Oh God, don't ever use the word
than being on a call where you're complaining about your competitors.
Never discredit your competitors. Wrong move.
Yeah, just stop.
Wrong move. I worked in the a lot on competitive intelligence and positioning in my role at Tenable, right? And one of the things I learned early on is you never discredit your competition. You just don't. No one wants to hear.
Think about some of the reasons why.
A salesperson come in and be like, their solution doesn't work. You shouldn't use them, and talk bad about your competition. Big mistake.
Well, yeah. First of all, you don't know who's connected to who. You don't know what they're invested in or not invested in. Also, I think it's a small approach to it. I think, I thought they were on the right path. Go explain the problem, explain your approach to the problem, explain your point of view, and really get that figured out. And then talk, this is the other part. A lot of people say, well, value prop's about differentiation. Yes and no. But differentiating because we've got better service. We look nicer than the other people. Yeah, stop. Just knock all that crap off. Here's how you differentiate yourself. I understand enough about your environment that I will help you increase value. And I also understand the impact, because friction erodes value. So you could have something that on paper, your value prop says that because the cost of a breach is X, some ludicrous number that nobody believes anyway, that you create value. Yeah, you're full of crap. But if you then also show me how you're helping other teams or helping what I currently have get better or whatever else, you just differentiated yourself because you listened and you gave me something compelling. I think that's how we do it. So anyway, just knock the games off. These aren't the things to do. And I really hate calling stuff out, but we're never afraid to do that. And I didn't want anybody getting into that habit. And if you get someone who does that to you, they're probably not worth your time. Kick them out your office and get back to the things you need to do. All right, we're going to take a quick break. Paul, we're on time today. This is going fantastic. There's some startups and there's some interesting trends that we're going to talk about in terms of who got funded, who got acquired, and what's happening this week. So come right back, and we're going to go through the startup and security news you need to know.